So everyone is here. Welcome, everyone who will listen to the recording. Welcome as well. It's a strange time to have community call because everyone is on holiday. But hey, we want to keep the pace. We want to continue to delivery at maximum speed, and so we will keep this appointment of community call for VectisDAO. And today, particularly, we will talk about a document that we just published on our GitHub related to the trusted crypto asset. As an introduction, Vectis is not just an open source project for a smart contract wallet and a set of other features and components like front ends, mobile application, set of smart contracts, relayers, indexer, etc. But the main objective of Vectis is to become a DAO, and particularly to become a regulated DAO. And that's why in this call as NIMLab, we will present this paper. We are going to commit this paper also to the GitHub of Rebooting the Web of Trust that will be held late September in Den Haag, in the Netherlands. Hopefully we will have the chance to meet some of you there and discuss this topic with others. So we're very open to contribution, of course. And let me share my screen and start the presentation. Can you hear my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So in the Discord, you can find the link to the repo that has been made public a few hours ago. I will focus on the diagrams in order to keep this presentation quite light at the moment. And the paper presents two aspects of the problem of managing what we call trusted crypto asset. We can call it also regulated crypto asset, even if we are not sure yet what will be the set of rules and legislation regarding crypto asset on public network, because our vision is that public decentralized network, permissionless and permissioned, will be the place where the new economy will develop. So forget about private network or centralized solution. We are heading to that future, but we need to provide a way to onboard normal user and to allow mass adoption of decentralized technology. So we need a way to protect the user, and VectisDAO and Vectis idea in general is fully dedicated to this purpose. That's why we introduced the guardianship services, which can be trusted or in a pure web of trust fashion, because we want the user to be able to use blockchain application fully decentralized as it's used in normal centralized application, traditional ones. And we also want the user to be protected regarding their own privacy, yet complying with what we think will be the future regulation in terms of identity management of holders of asset in public networks. And particularly, we focus on KYC and AML checks that should be two of the main measure to protect user, and also to define a new asset class that we can call trusted, in order to view them as a separate asset class in comparison with other normal crypto assets that are minted and distributed on decentralized network. So the paper include a description from the legal and organizational perspective of the problem, and then in a second section, a description of the technical perspective of the problem. And I don't want to be, I want to take too much time to go down deep in detail, so I want to give you an overview of the whole paper. The paper is a living document, so we'll be committing a snapshot of the papers on the Rebooting Web of Trust GitHub. But then you should rely on this link in our repo to see all the evolution that will come out. Of course, we are working also on the implementation, on a reference implementation, but I will go in detail in the end of the presentation. So let's focus on the first item of the document, which is the legal and organizational framework. So this is the context where, in our vision, the trusted crypto asset can live. We have three main actors here: the holder, of course, the network, and the asset originator. We call it asset issuer. Let's start from the asset issuer. You can think about, for instance, stablecoin issuer. So during the recent bear market situation, we saw that stablecoin was a way to maintain value during this period. But everyone can remember what happened with Terra and that type of stablecoin. So we think that asset issuers, not only limited to stablecoin issuer, but in general, crypto asset issuers, in the future shall need to comply to a certain set of rules. And these rules, for instance, are policy, procedures, auditings of reserves, and compliance with technical standards. And of course, this is a common feature for all the actors here. Asset originator should have an identity and be in a registered legal entity. This is very important because in the end, protecting the user means to provide accountability for the asset issuers. Let's talk about the holder. Of course, the holder, everyone wants to keep protect its identity over the blockchain. We know that. And so the problem that we're facing is how we can guarantee that we are dealing with an honest user without compromising its privacy. That's why our mission as a company is to bridge decentralized technologies with the new paradigm of self-sovereign identity, particularly leveraging on some protocols on the SSI. And this is essential because we need to combine two types of wallet: the standard crypto wallet, which through Vectis has a set of upgrades in terms of user experience, but also we need to provide the user with the ability to manage their own identity attributes in a very detailed way, and put him in the position to share through selective disclosure only the relevant information with a counterparty, providing data minimization and pseudo-anonymization of all the personal information that are sensitive. So, the holder, and Vectis is a reference implementation for that, will be acting using this asset and providing proof of its own identity and proofs that it has undergone through KYC processes and AML checks. But of course, this is not the only one only ones that may needed. The user, depending of the requirements of the crypto asset type, could be asked and challenged to provide other information. This is just a pattern, a design pattern that we're providing here. By analogy, if we consider the network, and if we consider the case of an app chain, which is very interesting to us. So a case where the network is dedicated to one single application, and the network coincide in the end with a decentralized autonomous organization, managing proposal and all the stuff. One important thing is the know your validator problem. Many network provides staking services. Staking services are a sort of financial services because the validator act as a company which is managing value of their customer, the user that are staking tokens. That can be slash, so their behavior can have an impact on the value of their stakers, the delegators. So we think that to complete this schema, the network should be formed by well-known registered legal entities that must go as the holders under KYC and AML checks and must comply with certain policy and procedures. This may change and may vary on the basis of the upchain requirements, but when I say policy and procedure and technical standard, you can imagine, for instance, being able to demonstrate that they're using HSM or other technology to protect the seed, the private key of the nodes, and other type of certification. For instance, security certification, social responsibility certification, and whatever can be demanded in terms of legal, organizational, capital requirements in order to protect the user, delegators in this case. So we think that the trusted crypto asset lives in this place at the center of this triangle, but inside a more wide context, which we call decentralized trust framework, which is completed by a certain set of other utilities that are really important. The first one is a list of trusted verifiable credential issuers. This is important, and we can take inspiration by eIDAS regulation. We know that Europe is quite advanced in terms of digital single market and trust framework. eIDAS is in place since 2016. One of the most important features of eIDAS, apart from the technical rules and all the stuff, is the management of a trusted service list, which allow subject that acts as a verifier to automatically evaluate the trust of a digital signature, for instance. This problem is also present when we shift from digital signature to trusted data economy based on verifiable credential. It's even more important. So the DAO, the app chain, should appoint a list of trusted issuers in order to let verifiers to be automatically sure about the trust of the verifiable credential or the proof that is derived from the verifiable credential when they ask for a presentation. And being able to trust those verifiable credentials means that the verifier commit to trust those information because those information has been issued following a certain set of rules, policy, and procedure by the trusted issuer, which is accountable for that. This is not the only thing. The other thing, of course, is the schemas. So the structures of all the information that are produced by issuers and present by holders to verifiers. So we need, for any community, like the one that we are describing here, a set of trusted schemas that define the dictionary and the templates under which those verifiable credentials will be issued. This is not enough, because then there are some other important elements that are more related to organizational and legal regulation. And one of them, very important, it's dispute resolution. Dispute resolution procedure is part of the possible constitution of the DAO, and every user that accepts to participate to the DAO accept implicitly or explicitly by providing signature to comply to those rules. And dispute resolution procedures means that in case of dispute, there are a set of elements that are taken into account by default and must be provided in case of a law enforcement process. For instance, verifier should provide logs that are verifiable in order to demonstrate that he did all the due diligence at time of verification of information. Same stuff for the issuer, and possibly same stuff for the holder. One important element of the holder is the wallets, and that's why we're talking about trusted crypto asset in this community call, of course. We are going to a new version of the eIDAS regulation in Europe, and this will introduce an identity wallet provided by member states. What does it mean? It means that for the first time, we will be able at European level to dematerialize a foundational identity document. What is a foundational identity document? Something like your passport, something like your identity card, your driving license, those type of information that belongs to your government. So only your government can issue those type of information. Until today, QTSP, Qualified Trust Service Provider, and all other actors in this field just use those type of information to check identity and issue other types of object like digital certificate or other information. In this context, the process of verifying the identity of a counterparty will be at speed of light, privacy preserving with superpower of SSI. So this is the landscape that we are going towards. And all these components should be organized in a current legal architecture that allow to bridge native decentralized technology with regulated finance, for instance, or regulated environment. This is the vision. And the vision is more explained here. So very briefly, you can see the center of the schema is the DAO and community legal wrapper. So we assume that the DAO in the future will be able to be a regulated subject, accountable, and that will solve a lot of problems, for instance, giving grants to company and regular business, providing features like AML by default, because the grant is given to the grantee by a legal subject. Being a regulated wrapper for a DAO means to set a set of policy, rules, procedures, and standards. And so this set of elements is summarized in this box called agreements. And the three main components of these agreements are the trusted issuer registry, so the list of trusted issuer, the trusted schema registry, the list of templates for credential, and the dispute resolution procedures. So every subject who participate to the DAO accept those set of rules and procedures automatically. And among those subjects, there are the trusted crypto asset originator. Issuing a trusted crypto asset means to comply and to assess the set of rules appointed by the DAO and accept to mint the asset on that network. The network could be fully dedicated to the DAO. This is the case of an app chain, or the DAO could be just one subset of the whole application on the layer 1. Okay, so this gives you an idea of the legal framework and organizational framework for a trusted crypto asset. So let's now dig into the detail of a technical schema. So I will zoom in a particular area of the schema. So you see we expanded here the case of an app chain. The app chain defines and requires a set of policy and procedures and appoint a set of trusted issuer that complies to those set of policies and procedures. This means that, for instance, one example of policy and procedure could be the identity proofing process followed by the trusted issuer at time of know your customer. So when you do the identity recognition of the counterparty, the holder. A trusted issuer, of course, complies with a set of rules and is able to issue credential that complies with the schemas that has been defined by the DAO. We are mentioning here credential definition and credential schema. So probably for some of you, this may be a sufficient element to assess what type of technology we are discussing here. But of course, we are relying on anonymous credential. So in the technology, specifically, the India SDK and the Ledger introduced times ago the concept of credential schema and credential definition. So credential schema is just a template of a credential, while the credential definition is the commitment of a certain issuer to that schema. So in that case, the issuer signs the schema with its own key and define the public key that will be used to verify signature executed by the issuer when issuing a certain credential. Also adding some other information like no revocation endpoints and whatever. And no revocation is another important component. At the moment, we are relying in this schema to crypto accumulator, so we are adopting the ARIES INDI RFC for no revocation. We are in the Vectis call, so you can recognize here what is the edge agent, what is a layer, what is a proxy wallet. And so this is the architecture of Vectis, or of a typical smart contract wallet. So the user, through a mobile phone, which is on the roadmap and will be released in autumn, will be able to receive credential. We call it qualified in order to enforce and underlie the fact that these credentials are legally binding regarding the recognition of the identity of the holder. And through this mobile agent, which we call Edge because it states in the end, it's a full non-custodial wallet. The user will be able to manage two things mainly. Its crypto asset and its verifiable credential. So we'll be able in one stop shop to sign transaction for transferring tokens to other recipients and providing identity proofs or any attribute that is required to validate the transaction. On the upper left corner of the schema, we see the asset issuer. For instance, think about a stablecoin issuer. So the stablecoin issuer decides to commit to the app chain. What does it mean? For instance, a stablecoin issuer decides to commit to a certain network. So he deploys its own smart contract there. And the smart contract will need to comply to certain rules from regulation. And this schema provides a way to minimize the impact of these rules to the contract itself. We don't want the asset issuer to implement business logic in their own contract, but we just want to provide a standard interface to the asset contracts in terms of validation. That's why we design this method. Imagine the edge agent that wants to start a transaction that is moving some token from its own account to another one. That transaction will include two elements: proof, which is derived by verifiable credential issued to the user, and transaction payload signed. These two objects will be bound together by a nonce. In the proof, the nonce will be in clear, while in the payload it will be the hash of the nonce. The relayer, which is another component present in Vectis, will be in charge to decide the routing of those two objects. So the transaction will be provided to the proxy wallet and propagated to the asset contract. But before this transfer is done, the asset contract will just need to check the validation of this transaction using the hash of the nonce. And here the main nuance, let's call it, of the whole architecture. So the capability at smart contract level to implement a verifier. So the verifier will be able to verify a proof on chain without storing it. So privacy is protected at the maximum level to the extent that we are working on chain, of course, and will be able to provide a Boolean answer to the asset contract. Of course, revocation will be leveraged also on, verification of the proof will be leveraged also upon revocation registry, so checking no revocation of those credentials. Yeah. So Vectis is going towards this schema, implementing all the features that you see here. As a reference, implementation will be relying on trusted issuers and upchain. So we're working also on integration of Vectis with GaiaDid, which is a services that allow to perform KYC and AML checks of the holder. We think that with this schema, a holder can act in a public network, protecting its own privacy, complying with future regulation. We don't know exactly what will be the form of those laws and rules, and we are trying to anticipate them here. And we see this as a way to introduce a new asset class in public decentralized network. So stay tuned. On our GitHub, you will see evolution of this document together with the delivery of technical components licensed under Apache 2 open source license, and of course in the Cosmos landscape and CosWasm technology. Yeah. So I'll stop my screen.